the phantasm, is a material. It is an instrument. It is also a material cause. Yes, it's a material cause, but it is especially, I will say, an instrumental efficient cause. Instrumental efficient cause. Now, number 25.3. All that we studied now prove that the body and the soul are one. We cannot know without a body. That means there is unity in man between the body and the soul. And the theory of knowledge of Aristotle proves that very clearly. That the highest, my highest knowledge, even the knowledge of God I can have, comes from my sense knowledge. The proof of that is very simple. Our Father who art in heaven. When you say that, you make two analogies. You start from two sense experiences. The experience of the Father and heaven, you look at that. You say God is there. But what is funny, the Vietnamese under you see God is there. Funny, no? You say God is there, the other you see God is there.
Both are right.
We cannot know even the most sublime truth without using our senses. It's a proof that body and soul are very interconnected. Contrary of what said Mr. Descartes. The substantial unity of body and soul, of sense and intellect. As the soul is to the body, so the intellect is to senses. So the soul is to the body, the intellect to the senses. Okay? They animate, the soul is animating. The body never acts without being animated by the soul. And similarly in man, the senses never act without being animated by the intellect. This means that the intellect is already at work with the inner senses, in particular with the cogitative power. Remember, cogitative power here, when we use our senses, our instinct, but illuminated by our intellect. Indeed, the intellect animates its formation, and its subtle activity produces the universal ideas. So the empress species of the intellect is thus the best understood as a dynamic relationship between the agent intellect here as a principal efficient cause and the phantasm as instrumental cause. And the fruit of that stays in my mind in the passive intellect. So I am the one who acts and the one who takes benefit. And that is a spontaneous activity. You remember the two characteristics of life? Spontaneity and immanence. Here is the perfect example. Spontaneity, the intellect illuminate, and immanence, the result of that stay in you. You have at the same time the one who acts and the one who takes benefit of your own action. And that is the characteristic of vital operation. When you think, for example, you are the one who abstract. Every word I say to you, you abstract that. You know that. If I say kangaroo, you receive a word, kangaroo, boom, 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 boom. You abstract. Continually, we abstract. After that, you give to another, etc. So we, as long as we are awake and continually, we are using our. I go now to page 174. I have 10 minutes. So for that I will go 74A. Take that, 74A. Everything is here, 74A. You have the proper material object. So in fact we saw that every activity of man depends on an object. So the intellectual activity of man depends also on object. And what is the object of those activities? So I give you here a summary of what is in the text. Okay. So you have the proper material object, and you have here the total material object. Suppress the word adequate here, okay? Suppress the word adequate, because the word adequate will go down. Okay, here suppress, adequate. It is written total or adequate. Suppress adequate. Page 174A. Okay? And you have here proper formal object, and you have here adequate formal object. So I explain that repeatedly. The proper object here, material object, is the one known through the senses. Material object, any kind of material object. In fact, it is matter, every material object here. We know the matter. But the formal is the form. The form of the thing. So the whatness, the quidity, the essence of material thing, the essence, the whatness, that is the proper object of the intellect. So we know first through our senses, material thing, but we abstract and we arrive to the essence, the quidity of a thing. It is what we studied just before. So that is the first division. The first division. Another division is to figure out the total object and the adequate object. But, or sometimes in some book they say again material object. I don't like that. But anyway. So the total object is being. That means man is, the intellect object is open to any being. Being. Okay? But what is the formal object is being as truth. As truth. When we study being next in January, we will see that every being is one, every being is true, every being is good. That means every being, the fact it exists, is different from the other, can be known by intellect, and if he exists, he corresponds to the one who thought about his existence, etc. So we can say the adequate object of the intellect is to attain the truth. That's the adequate object. But the total object is being. But there's a difference. Here it is being. In fact, my intellect is open to any kind of being, any mode of being. But what is formal, what is adequate for my intellect, is being not as good. That is the object of my will. But being as truth. That means in being, I discover the truth. That means the correspondence of what I think to the reality. You know? Here it is another division. I know truth. This is the way. It is the content here. And the way I know, here the content. What I know. I will not insist too much on that, but I think it's this. You have the essential here. So the way I can know through my senses, but I can know through the form of thing. That means I can know the essence of thing, the concept. I know through the concept. I know through my senses, my fantasy. But the content, why do I know? What do I know? I know a being, any being, even God. Any being is object of my knowledge. So man is a curious animal, always searching and questioning animal. But he's questioning, especially through his intellect, for truth. And we see next week, he is also searching being for the good. That is the object of the will. That means every being as good can be willed, at least by the one who created that being, by God. And I will continue by the spirituality of the human soul. I already spoke about that tonight. Spiritual, that means you have that positively, positively and wholly immaterial. There is a difference between immaterial and spiritual. Immaterial means detached from matter. Spiritual is more than that. Spiritual means exist independently of matter and operate independently. But it can use, For example, when you write, are you the slave of your pencil? You can take another pencil, no? It's the same, for the soul. My soul is spiritual, but it can use many sensations, many material things. Okay? So spiritual, you have that, positively immaterial. Intrinsically independent of matter, at least in being and some activities. Independent in being. That means my existence does not depend on of matter. You say my soul. Yes, your soul depends on you as a human being. It requires a body. But after that, it can continue because it is incorruptible, because it is spiritual, detached from matter. But it's spiritual characteristic, independent, detached from matter in its being. And on page 176, it is yellow on my page here. You have two proof of that. The first proof, it is his ideas are universal. They are necessary and true. They cannot derive from any material organ. And no organ, even my brain, can produce truth, can produce the knowledge. It is an instrument. It is beyond time and space. I transcend time and space. What is interesting, at the same time, I am in time and space, but at another point of view, I am above time and space. Next week, we will see that we are at the same time using our instinct. At the same time, we can control our passion. So from the universality of that, we conclude to the existence of a power also universal. Detached from any singularity. That is abstraction. We can abstract, we can detach, we can arrive to a universal level, totally independent from matter. If my activity are able to be spiritual, the source of my activity is also spiritual. We cannot affirm directly the spirituality of the human soul, but you can affirm through this, its activities. And the second proof, number 25.6, I already spoke about that. It is the capacity of reflection. The mind attention itself, and the intellect turning back on itself. So the subject and the object coincide. They are one. How is it possible that my intellect, agent intellect and passive intellect, they are one with two functions? I read you a quotation here. We know the spirituality of the soul through the action of the intellect, which grasps the universal, and through the will, we see that next week, which tends necessarily toward the perfect good. So the soul is a power. It has an intellectual power to seize, to grasp the universal truth, outside of time and space, and also the will, which is tending toward the perfect good, perfect happiness. The object being spiritual, that means detached from any materiality, and existing in the mind without material support, for example, the concept, the formal, sign, abstract, and universal. Therefore, the subject, the soul, must be spiritual. Why? Because its activities are spiritual. Capacity of reflection, and for the will, control of my appetite. So that You know, when we have to affirm the spirituality of the human soul, we are obliged to come here. Tonight, the class, unfortunately, I have to say that is very concentrated, huh? But it is through my activity that are detached from matter, especially abstraction and reflection, that I prove that my activity are detached from material reality. My function depends on the principle, the soul, which is also detached from material reality. And if the soul continues to function, it uses my senses, my phantasm, as a tool, as an instrument. And that important here is the notion of principal efficient cause, my intellect, my soul, and instrumental efficient cause, my senses. Like the pencil is instrumental efficient cause, but the writer is the principal efficient cause. That means we must know causality, as an analogous. If you take cause as a univocal, you are pantheism, you fall into pantheism. We fall into pantheism. So, thank you for your attention. And next week we begin the last part of the class, the volition, appetite, emotion, all that.